Hi, this is Boki, and today for Not My Thesis, I want to talk about what I wish I'd known when I started grad school. So this is basically because of two things. One is it's the beginning of the school year, so there are people starting grad school all over the world. The other thing is that this was actually a Twitter thread that had been going around, so I'm not being original in any way. Unfortunately, I cannot find the link to it right now. If I do find it, I will link to it below. My advice was that grad school friends can be the most generous people if you let them. In general, for grad school, a lot of us are in our 20s, and it's kind of a weird time in your life where you're trying to figure out how to be an adult and you think everyone's figured it out except you. And grad school kind of compounds that with the stress of grad school. All I will say is that it can be very hard to not compare yourself to people just in general, and I think it's difficult in grad school because your work is so personal and so attached to your identity. I think if you can get past that to the point where you can share your success, your failures, what you're trying to achieve when you leave grad school, it can be incredibly powerful. Everyone in grad school is in the same boat and everyone is absorbing knowledge from different places that you can really learn a lot from each other. I've gotten so much benefit from just talking to my friends or asking them for help. I've had friends who have sent me their resumes so that I can start figuring out how I want to display mine. I've had friends where I've talked about, I'm looking for these kinds of jobs, and they'll just start forwarding me every job opportunity that they find that sounds relevant. I just think that grad school friends can be really amazing if you can find people who can be really open and vulnerable with, and you can also work that into yourself. I think it takes some work to really get to that place, but if you can, and you can get there with people you trust, it's really worthwhile. Second, you will never feel like you have enough time to do the stuff you want to do, which sounds shitty, but the bright side of that is it means that any time is the right time to do anything. If you just decide, I want to do something, most of the time you can just decide to do it. I've taken on leadership stuff, things like this YouTube channel, other hobbies, have just been me saying well, you know what, this is something that I want to do, so I'm just gonna do it. If you just decide you're gonna do something else, well, you're just gonna have to do your work a little bit faster, and sometimes it does make you faster, sometimes it makes you more efficient. There are times though where this isn't true. I'm definitely in the place right now where I do have to be working most of the time, but even still, I'm trying to find a way to balance that with other interests. That's made it easier to approach this stressful time because I still have it in the back of my mind that there are things outside of work for me. My next piece of advice, be nice to the admin people. I'm not talking, you should be nice to your chairs and all of that, but I'm talking about the people who are doing the day-to-day kind of nitty-gritty stuff, sending you guys emails about forms you need to fill out, helping with just, I don't know, budgets and all of this stuff. Be nice to them because their job is to keep your life going, and that is harder than it looks because we are not an easy bunch to take care of. I feel very comfortable generalizing about this. Grad students, we do not make people's life easy. We need a lot of babysitting. Admins are really the people who will keep you functioning in grad school, sometimes without really any gratitude. So even if it's their job, I think you should be really grateful to them for doing it because a lot of times they go above and beyond what is asked of them just because we make their life that much harder. And I have found that if you are nice to the administrative people, they are nice in return because they're human beings who are decent people. So just don't be shitty to them and be thankful. Express gratitude because that's just a good thing to do. So next up, get involved in the department if you can. This isn't going to be something you can always do. For our department, we didn't have a grad student committee until my first year, and I didn't join it until my fourth year, but I think joining it has been something that has been really helpful for me because it's given me a different form of interaction with a department where instead of the department being this I don't know, this monolithic kind of big boss that I have to go up against to graduate, it became something that I could interact with and to make my grad student experience more what I want it to be. One of the things that I thought was missing from our department was a stronger sense of community. And by getting involved with our grad student committee, I was able to kind of help with events and stuff that I thought work towards that aim. So my next piece of advice, which is kind of related to the previous one, is to talk to people who are new to your department. Most of the times that's going to be a new faculty member, but they might not just be a new younger professor, they might be older as well. One of the things that I think is kind of endemic to academia is a sense of complacency. I think it's telling that basically what everybody wants is to get tenure, which is basically ambitious complacency. And I think in departments it can kind of translate into a if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing. The problem is that sometimes people are a little bit in denial over what broke means. The great thing about new faculty members is that they're new and they a lot of times come in with a lot of energy and a lot of new ideas, and I found it really helpful to talk to them and get to know them, because a lot of times that can translate into you getting involved in new projects that might be in line with things that you want outside of the lab. In my case, it's been things like getting involved with organizing seminars or organizing workshops. I just think it's been really helpful, especially if you are someone who wants to get involved with the department. So next up is some really very pragmatic advice. There are 3 particularly really good times for free food. The first is the beginning of the school year, because everyone's coming back and there's all these welcome back socials. The second is the end of the school year, because there's all the end of school year things and like graduation. And the third is the holidays, because there are all those holiday parties. So those are the 3 times of the years where you might be able to get some kind of break with grocery shopping. So next up is, I think, kind of acknowledging a fundamental challenge of your grad school experience, which is that you will probably come to identify very, 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 very strongly with your work, which is to say that you will probably start to attach any sense of self-worth to the outcome of your research, which means that on a week-to-week basis, how you feel about yourself can undergo some tremendous fluctuations. I will have some weeks where I'm like, I am so bad at this. I am the worst scientist ever because all of my experiments are failing. I can't get things to work. None of my data makes sense. And then a week later, I will get some amazing result and I'll be like, holy shit, I am the smartest person in the world. I'm an amazing scientist. I'm gonna cure cancer. No one's ever gonna beat me. It's very easy to undergo those kind of fluctuations when you attach so much of your self-worth just to your research. This is not advice. I am just saying this just to make it clear that this will likely happen, because I think if you can anticipate it, you can maybe better navigate it and maybe approach it in a way that's healthy for you. If I were to attach some kind of advice, maybe what I would say is to remember that like half of research is just crapshoot. So yes, there are things you have to be good at. There is skill involved. You have to be able to ask good questions. You have to be able to run good experiments. You have to be able to explain your ideas and your outcomes clearly. There is a lot of skill involved, but you are also completely subject to the fact that you are engaging with ideas that you don't have an answer to. You are asking questions that you don't know if there's going to be a meaningful outcome for, which means that half of your outcome is really going to be dependent on forces that you aren't going to know until you start investigating them. Which means you're kind of off the hook to a certain extent. If you're doing your work and you're doing it well, yeah, maybe things will fail, and what you'll learn is that this wasn't the road to go down. But you do have to go through that process of learning. It's frustrating, it's tiring, it's stressful, but it doesn't mean that you are bad at research. Maybe connected to that is the other piece of advice, and this is actually my advisor's advice. This is what he tells us all the time. Fail quickly. The faster you go through things, the faster you set up your experiments, the faster you get your data, the faster that you learn that your experiment hasn't worked, the sooner you can move on and get to a place that you're successful. And this is really hard for me at times. Sometimes I don't want to analyze my data. If I'm like really stressed about it and I don't think it's going to look good, I'll put it off, and then I'll analyze it and I'll be like, well, shit, this actually looks pretty good. Or I'll be like, oh, this doesn't look good. But by analyzing it, I can get to a place where I am better able to figure out my next step. So yeah, to quote my advisor, fail quickly. Next up is advice that I have very specifically given at orientations for first years, and I don't know if people are listening to me. If you are on a crowded train, if you are in a crowded public transportation system, please, unless the floor is disgusting, put your backpack on the floor. It will save so much space, it will let more people in. Your backpack doesn't have nerve endings, so when people are trying to pass by you, if they need to get past your backpack, you're not gonna know. So just put it on the floor and they'll have space to pass by you. It's a lot better, I promise. Moving back to maybe something a little bit more grad school related. A lot of things that you are working on are things you might be kind of intimidated by, that you're a little bit nervous to try. Instead of trying to do things strictly to get a good outcome, try to treat it as an experiment. To illustrate that, I'm gonna actually talk about this channel. When I started this channel, it was like, I don't know if anyone's gonna watch these videos. What I told myself is that I'm just gonna do this and I'm gonna try it and see what happens. That's a very different perspective than I'm going to make videos for the goal of getting an audience. And now that I'm at a point where I've been experimenting with this, I've like kind of iterated different like things that I want to try with it, it's a lot easier for me to make videos than if I had told myself I'm going to do this strictly for the goal of getting, you know, subscribers. And I think this quote carries over into grad school in a lot of ways. Like, obviously there are experiments that I run and I have to treat those as experiments, but it carries over into other areas of grad school, like, I don't know, applying for jobs or talking to people about things that I'm nervous about. I think this is something that carries over actually to a lot of the advice that I've given in this video, where if you don't treat things as necessarily permanently debilitating, it's much easier to approach them with an energy that's more flexible so that you can adapt to negative outcomes. I guess that's my very jargony way of saying that if you just do it, you can figure it out. It's hard though. It is hard. It's very easy for me to give advice, and like I said, a lot of this is stuff that I wish I had known when I started grad school and that I have learned over the years and even still am kind of internalizing. So I understand that this is not necessarily something that is going to resonate right away. One of the things that I have found with advice is that it never really resonates until after you needed it, until like after you figured out what that advice means. And my last piece of advice is to get a cat. They're the best people to have around when you are stressed, when you need someone to watch TV with you, all that stuff. Also kind of, he's been trying to get into this video, like he's been yelling from the other side of the door for a while, and then when he comes in here he like bats stuff around, and now I bring him here and he just doesn't want to be here. Taking a full circle, bringing it back to my first piece of advice, grad school friends are really great if you're trying to get a cat because they will help you figure it out. I think this is beyond grad school friends, cat people want more cat people in the world because then you get to visit their cats and compare them to your cat. So yeah, when I got a cat, my grad school friends were like super helpful. They wanted me to learn how to have a cat, and when I need to go visit my husband, they take care of him. People, super generous. Get a cat, be nice to your admins, get free food, do some shit, have a good time, all that stuff. So if you're starting grad school, good luck. If you're not starting grad school, if you've been at it for a while, still good luck. If you're trying to finish, good luck. So if you guys have questions about grad school or anything, let me know down below. If you have your own advice to share, also leave it, because I would be really fascinated by what other people think is helpful to know about grad school beforehand. So yeah, thank you for watching and bye.